Morena, it's really a pleasure to talk with you today. I've been a fan of yours for a while now with some of your recent work. So,
Thank you.
good morning.
Good morning.
Congratulations on the premiere of the Endgame. It was such a
Thanks.
thrilling show to watch. Tell us a little bit about it and how it sets itself apart from other thrillers.
Sure. It's kind of a edge of your seat ride. This two female led show where there's a bit of a cat and mouse chase between them. I play Elena Federova, who is an international arms dealer, has just been captured by the FBI, and Val Turner comes into the picture pretty quickly as she realizes who this woman is, and the bank heists that I've orchestrated in New York City start to unwrap to reveal themselves to the FBI and to New York City. And so begins this very long, I think, relationship between these two women, where ultimately they're going to be fighting for the same thing, but Elena has to reveal her plan slowly so Val can put it together and trust her. So there's this kind of figuring out the puzzle pieces and a lot of action, and also at the core of it, a very strong, emotionally driven character or
And
two.
it's funny because I had a bunch of questions I asked you, which I crossed off because you're probably just going to tell me you're going to have to wait and find out. But that's that's really the magic of a thriller like this.
Yes.
What I can ask you though is where did you find your Elena?
That's a very good question. Well, for me, it started with the accent, with figuring out where she was from, where she was raised. When I got the role, I spoke to the writers, and we also changed her to embrace some of the things about, from my background. She's half Brazilian. She grew up in Europe, and some things that would, help her feel not like this sort of big, larger than life bad guy, but a much more personal connection. And then once we narrow down what she should sound like, finding the dress was a really big part of who she was
Mm.
too, because I kept having this conversation with them, like, well, what do you mean she was captured in a restaurant, but she's in a gown? Like, I couldn't put it together. And then I thought, well, we have to find something that is believable that she would wear, that isn't just pretty or sexy, that is also strong, and that is intimidating to these all these men in suits in this interrogation room. So it was a process of like putting the pieces together, and I think she finally came to life.
Speaking of that dress and that kind of the reveal we see in the pilot, you come off as very strong, very what's the word I'm looking for? Confident a person, obviously, who is really untouchable because we see that mentioned a couple of times by other people in the series and the pilot. What was that experience like for you to play to have that role where there's like a room full of people who are just scrambling to try and figure out, and you just got to be cool, calm, collected. Nothing's wrong. I got this.
Yeah, I think it was keeping in mind the goal, and there are mini goals within that, and then there's the larger goal, and just keeping that intention, and then everything that kind of came her way was about knowing what all of this was going to what was going to happen at the end of the day to these people, um, and then having fun with it. I think it's really important to have a good time playing this part. If I stop having fun, the audience stops having fun watching, and it's really what we're doing is not that serious.
Oh, you mentioned a little bit earlier about working with Ryan Michelle Bay, Val, who plays Val. Tell me a little bit about working with her, the chemistry you guys developed, and your experience with her.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She's a really hard worker. We both went to drama school, rival drama schools, so we have some of the same lingo actually. And we do talk a lot about our scenes together, and we get together and we just sort of figure out, like, well, why are we saying these lines, and what's the motivation behind them, and what would make it better. And we often do work on this stuff together because our scenes are very pivotal to each episode, and we don't want people knowing once the audience is ahead of us, we've lost them. So we really need
Mm.
to stay one step ahead of everybody else.
In speaking of that, can you talk a little bit about the writers and the twists and turns? Because kind of like you're mentioning, you guys can have a great cast, you guys can have great action sequences, but if kind of the mysteries, some of those thrills, some of those questions are answered too soon, it's not really going to work. So it comes
Yeah,
down to great
yeah.
writing.
I mean, I'm actually impressed. They've done a really good job. Every time I get an episode, I think I'm gonna be bored or I'm gonna know what's coming, and I don't every time. I'm like, oh, I didn't know this was happening. So that's awesome. That's all on them. And I think they've been very clear about, the direction the show is heading, and not veering from that, not getting too sidetracked with other things or other storylines, and always kind of coming back to the main focal point, which is this goal that Elena has, for justice and truth. And, you know, it helps that they know, even if they're giving out the pieces to us very slowly.
Is there how much do you get to read ahead, and is there anything that's really caught you off guard while you're reading it? I mean, you don't have to mention what it is, but
Sure, sure, sure. I mean, I'm not that far ahead. Well, we start episode 8 today. But I haven't read 9, for example. So we're really just living in the moment with what we're working on currently. I've asked a lot of questions, and so I have a basic idea of where we're going by the end of the season, but I don't know the specifics. And sometimes I'll read things and go, well, you told me that was going to happen, but you didn't tell me that was how that was going to happen. Some things are definitely a surprise, but they've done such a good job of just keeping it flowing, moving, and keeping it fun.
do they are is the creative team open to working with you as you discover more of Elena to maybe tweak certain things as you go along?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's the third or fourth episode. I don't know if you've seen this one yet, but I asked for some props to have in the room. And I think it's important that if I have an idea or I feel creatively like something would be fun to use, that they're open to it. And they have been so far. Sometimes, we can't make it happen in time, or, there are constraints to it, but it's been very collaborative so far.
What have you learned from your character, Elena, that you hope maybe to take away with you in your personal life?
I guess that when you set yourself a goal, and you're gonna go get it, it's important to have fun along the way.
That's really good. Well, and I thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure to talk with you today, and I look forward to continuing watching this because I love it.
Cool. Thank you so much.
All right, take care. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.